Welcome to Expedient Means at Lin Wei on Time Monk Radio. Lin currently resides in China and is the founder and head teacher of Guizhen Philocultural Society. He has extensive experience in Buddhist and Taoist meditation, Qigong, martial arts, and traditional Chinese medicine. To learn more about Lin, please visit his website at www.guizhenhui.net. Tonight, Lin will be speaking about politics and holding the right views. Welcome back, Lin.
Hey there.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to talk about politics and holding the right views. And I guess my first question is, are we going to be talking about holding the right views as politicians or as the governed, I guess, or maybe both?
Well, why don't we just hold the right views as to how we're going to deal or even go to understand what's actually happening out there in the world.
Okay.
Okay, and you know, just for the listeners out there, we are experiencing a little lag in our connection, so bear with us. Excuse me. So, first, let's look at something in cultivation. In Buddhist cultivation, we call the 12 causes and conditions. I'm just going to label them out for you, and you can take them in any which understanding you would like. I'm not going to comment on them. But this is going to be very important for how we're going to position our mind, or what we're going to utilize in our mind for seeing the world with politics, or as it is with politics. The first condition is just going to be 1 through 11. Ignorance, which conditions activity. Activity, which conditions consciousness. Consciousness, which conditions name and form. Name and form, which conditions the sense organs. 6 sense organs, which conditions contact. Contact, which conditions feeling. Feeling, which conditions love. Love, which conditions grasping. Grasping, which conditions existence. Existence, which conditions birth. Birth, which conditions, number 12, old age and death. So, now that you got this laid out for you, let's look at politics. Our world is full of corruption all over the place. Why? Because of greed. It's all it's going to be down to it. And I've heard of some, or, you know, brought up the idea that this is all kind of like a silent agreement. You know, governments can do what they please based on us not speaking up about what we don't like. And when we do speak up on what we don't like, there's always obstacles there, and we have to learn the system in order to fight this silent contract that's going on. I'm not going to go too deep into it because I don't study that specifically. But basically, with that in mind, let's understand that politics are there because we are there to be controlled by them. What do I mean by that? We let politics be in our world. We let it do what it's supposed to be doing. It's supposed to be doing what it is doing based on us not doing anything else about it. And why? Well, we don't like certain things that happen in politics, whether we live in a democratic country or not. A lot of people just don't do anything whatsoever. They like to sit at home and deal with their luxuries and haves and everything like that. They like to hold everything they have, and they're afraid to let go. So what do we do with that? Well, because the world is like that, the conditions of society are just that way, the more you fight back, the more you find yourself wasting your time. It's not going to change. The way the world is now, meaning the world of society and politics and government and whatever, it's going to be that way. It's always been that way, just in different forms. Nothing has evolved, nothing has changed, just the use of technology and the way it's being used. And truthfully, it all boils down to being greedy, and then being angry when they don't get what they want, and then doing more stupid things to try to actually get what they want. Most of the time they get it. And then they try to put more, when I say they, I mean those in power who really, not all governments are like that, but I would say a great portion of them all are. Sorry for the background noise. I have a lot of commotion going on in my office. Anyway, we as people
Sounds
gotta
like
really
a political rally.
sit down and think. It's funny. We as we are as people. So we as people must really, really, really think: what the hell are we getting upset about if we're not getting out to do something about it? People think, well, what about rioting or what about protesting to change things in politics? No, that's not doing anything about it at all. It does help, but it doesn't change the actual reasoning for things to be the way they are. Eventually, it'll go back to corruption. It'll go back to all this craziness. Okay? What we need to do is change our views about what we think in the world, and it's very important. You got any views about this, Oolong?
Myself, I stopped voting quite a few years ago for the simple reason that I always felt, or I eventually came to feel that um, if I voted for someone, I was condoning what they did afterwards, which usually turned out to be quite a big disappointment. I mean, I may vote in, my city elections for my councilors, the people I know, I actually know and are in the community, but that would be about it.
It's a big misnomer, this voting situation we got going on. I mean, in the West, you can't tell who's who's being funded by what. And I'm not putting it down, democracy, but it's not really working for the best interests of the whole. It's working for the best interests of the few, and that's not really what. Well, if we're going to focus on America for a moment, it's not what America was really founded on. America was founded on what's the word? Genocide. you know, unlike most of the countries, they had their own people there. America was formed on murdering people who were already here just to take their land. People don't like the way that's being said. Well, who cares? That's exactly the way it was. You don't just come into a place and start shooting down people or giving them the bait and switch, or lying to them to get what you want. Well, that's what you don't do now. We know that's what you don't do now. It still happens, believe it or not. It still happens now. Okay? There's just many masks on what it looks like. But overall, it's still happening. In a country where there's no voting, people know what the hell's up with the government. They know what the deal is with politics. They know people are bought. They know corruption exists. They know who's who and what they're doing. It's very clear. But in a democratic country, you can't find who's doing what because things are hidden. And how are they hidden? They're hidden through lobbying. They're hidden through media. They're hidden through this person was the president for 4 years or 2 years, and then they changed, and another person who has a different rhetoric wants to come along and do something else, which in turn they end up continuing what the past president had done, and it's just a different face with the same types of methods, probably a little dolled up here and there. So what do people do with this? It's very simple what they do with it. It goes very simple. First, you look at what it is that you're actually angry about. Now, take it to your personal level, because just because you have a view about how things are in the government or how things are in politics doesn't mean your view is actually going to do anything about it. It doesn't mean you converting or talking to like 10 different people around you is really helping the mass public. It's not. What's going to actually help the mass public is very simple. Investigating what views they have, what views you have about this world and about people around you. That's very important. First step is investigate. Why are you angry with the way things are? Okay. Then you can find something very straight up and simple. It's this way or it's that way. Fine. It's that way. Is it really affecting you? No, but it's affecting tens of millions of other people. Okay, good. What are you doing to help tens of millions of other people? Well, I'm not going to certain stores who lobby these specific people and blah, blah, blah. Okay, you're one person. It's very important that you don't do that. I mean, it's very important that you do stop, going to certain supermarkets, certain places, and who fund, we'll call them evil politicians. It's very important you step away from that and give other people the example. But the fact is, it's a slow process. So what do? You have to live by example regardless. You can't push your views on other people because you become just like the people you don't like. Change your own personal views on greed. Change your own personal views on what you think you need. This way, you realize the things that are being pushed out there in media as something very special, something very important you should have, materialisms I'm talking about, you'll step away from that because you know it's not really necessary. Over time, more and more generations will do the same. It'll take time. Why? Because those who have the tools are the ones who are in power, and they have an easier way to get people to do what they want. Okay? So, don't sit there crazy complaining every day, oh my God, this government this, and this politician that, and this society this, and whatever, whatever. Because it's not helping you. It's only causing you to be more angry. What I'm focusing on in this talk here is how these politics are influencing us on an individual level, and that we are venting out in certain ways and attaching to our views in certain ways that only put us more deeper in a hole that we cannot climb out of. And that hole is anger. You know, pointing the finger is not really changing. We have to really change ourselves if we want the society to really change.
You don't think pointing the finger is a good idea? I mean, if for example, if we take Monsanto, and you know, people basically pointed the finger at them and said a lot of what they're doing with this GMO stuff is wrong. And then it actually, by pointing the finger at them, it actually raised public awareness, and now you've got sort of a backlash against the GMOs.
You must have action. You know, some people point the finger and then just sit at home watching the news and drinking their beer or whatever, or coffee or whatever, and don't do anything.
Right.
But I'm saying, this is what I tell my students here. If they don't like what's going on in government, in politics, in society, what do they have as a solution? You don't have a solution? Shut the hell up. First step. Second step, if you have a solution, how are you going to express your solution? How are you going to educate yourself in order to be able to educate other people on a solution that does not cause disharmony, does not cause people to go ape crazy out in the streets, rioting all over the place in aggression which causes more pain and suffering on people? You don't have one? Then keep quiet. That's what I say to them.
I sort of disagree with that. I mean, if you think of an engineer who looks at a bridge that's about to fall down, and he doesn't have the exact fix for it, but he sees a structural problem, you know, by pointing it out, maybe the right person that has a solution will come in and pitch in and help.
This is different. This is different. I know what you're meaning. What I'm saying is, you're paying taxes to a government that's using your taxes to go out in other countries and kill people. Literally just kill people. For what? For greed. And the people who they're supposedly hunting are the people who worked with them in government before. This is what I mean. I'm meaning of overall direction of who's supporting what and why we're going to do it. If I see a bridge falling down, I should try to help something with it. I should point the finger. Who can do that, and why are they not doing it? That's having an idea and then having the solution and then taking action with the solution in a way that doesn't cause people's death or cause people more suffering.
Okay.
You know? So here we're talking about that, and if, you know, you have a solution, then how do you take action? You have to educate. Learn how to speak without causing your point to be, on a relative note, inferior to those who have the power, quote unquote power. Educate yourself. How am I going to explain this in a way that they will listen to me? Well, probably they're not going to listen to one person. They're probably going to listen to 50,000 people who are yelling and screaming in the street, who also have the education that you have, your research, your understanding, and also put their understandings involved. So now you helped other people become educated in what should be considered the right way, which means they're not killing each other in the street. They're not breaking things all over the place. And they're standing up for a justice which is beneficial for the whole, even when a lot of people don't understand that and don't even think it's necessary. Okay, so this becomes a conflict of views. When people don't think it's necessary, everything is all right and fine with them, you know, there's a problem. Well, the only problem is, how do you educate them? You don't force people to listen to you, but you got to put it out there. This is the unity of sharing. This is how you share with other people by leading example. If you have a solution, you speak up. That means you have a way to express yourself. And then you have to take action.
I was going to say, I don't think the street protests really do anything anyhow, the yelling and screaming and
No.
waving the signs. It really doesn't do much. I mean, maybe at best it raises public awareness, but I don't think it actually causes the leaders to change in any way.
No, what would scare the leaders into change, which is more of a hard kindness in a very, very nice way, is people to. Are we still connected? I thought I lost connection for a moment.
No, I think we're good.
Oh, okay. What's going to really scare the hell out of leaders in a way that is calm and peaceful? What's going to make them change is when people realize they are the ones funding them by giving in to materialism. That's all. Stop going to these places that fund your leaders. Simple. Oh, I have to travel across the United States, so I have to travel across the world, so I have to use the airlines. Don't use the airlines. Sometimes sacrifice is needed in order to really get your message across. You want a better life for your kids? You want a better life 4 generations down? Then you got to take sacrifices now. Oh, well, I miss my family out in wherever. Fine. You miss them so much? Pack your stuff up and move out there and start your life over there. And then you just don't have to go traveling all over the world.
Well, I mean, I think there's limits to that too. I mean, from my perspective, all you can do is the best you can. Sometimes, it's not realistic to say don't fly, right? But you could maybe, instead of shopping at Walmart, shop at the local guy who's got a supermarket down the street, right?
Well, basically, I'm just throwing in the extreme, but people can do with it as they find fit. But yes, don't go into these supermarkets that are GMO country, You don't go into places that fund war. You don't go into places that use your money that you're busting your butt for war. You don't go to these places. You don't fund them. What about your politicians? What about your local politicians? What about this and that? Well, you raise local public awareness. Oh, they do this. Well, that's just more conspiracy. That's more propaganda. Well, what they do is propaganda too. Everything is propaganda. Even the show is propaganda. Everything is just that. What is this propaganda that we're talking about? One's point of view pushed on the majority. And it's constantly being pushed. This show is a propaganda for your mind to let you let go of what you find attachments to and let you understand that there's more of the world out there than what your worldviews are. So this is trying to get you to the path of freedom.
I was going to say, I think just raising public awareness, a lot of people would think that that's not going to do anything. But I think almost from a Taoist perspective that, just raising the public awareness will do without doing. Once people have reached a point of critical mass, things are just going to change.
Yes. Public awareness is so very important. But remember, it has to be public awareness without the usual rhetoric of trying to force people to realize what's happening, what's going on. You can't just say, our government sucks. No, be educated about it. How do they suck? Our government does this and that. Okay, good. Be educated. How do they do this and that? Show me more proof. Show me more information. Give me references. Show this. Let people know that this is just not some psychotic person on the street wanting to cause riots.
Well, that's just it. There's so much that our media now is so controlled. It really suppresses a lot of what's really going on. And now with the internet, a lot of this stuff that they've been doing is creeping out, and people are tuning out of the mainstream media, which is a really good thing.
Yes, very good thing. So what was once a tool for control and mass hysteria can be used for something good. What I call mass hysteria with the internet is that everyone starts just focusing on the computer and has no social life, hysterically focused on what their personality is on the internet. So you can utilize these tools that were to be used against us for us. That's all. You can do that. Public awareness is so important. Monsanto is banned out of so many other countries. It's so important that our food does not get hurt, but it's getting hurt. So what do? You got to deal with it. Okay? People are complaining about this thing and that thing. You know what? You don't like it so much? Maybe go a week without buying gasoline. Huh? Stop using public transportation for a week. Stop using public transportation until you get what you want from society, from the government. That's a safe way of doing it. But what about my job? Oh, well, you want something at such a high price? You got to suffer for a little bit. Well, I got a family of 3, a family of 4, a family of 5. Okay, so what are you willing to sacrifice? I say, if people want to just be out there and quote unquote change the world, don't have families. Don't. Because you can only go so much before you sit there and go, my baby's hungry. You know? Don't have families if you want to be out there and be a quote unquote freedom fighter. You do so with education. You do so with restraint. You understand that emotions of personal greed or personal grasping, like love, do not get in place here. You put that for the whole entire world community. And you lead that way.
So you mentioned something earlier about, how democracy is failing us. And I personally, I don't think democracy is the best political system. I'm not sure I can say what is, but it seems to me that the power brokers love democracy because it's so easy. It's really easy to corrupt it.
Oh, very simple to corrupt it. Oh man, it's just unbelievable. If you just, if someone were to just look at down the line of who's running and who's in our government, who's running things in our government, down into specific, House of Representatives and whatnot, and you go into big corporations and their connections to this specific branch of government and whatnot, you can just throw anyone you want in office based on what you think they can do for you. So there is no real voting, really. I mean, if everyone voted for Ron Paul, or if the majority of people did actually vote for Ron Paul, and it was very obvious, then he would be our president, even if those with the control didn't want him to be.
Right.
They can do it. People can do it. But there's too much. You know what's fun about our quote-unquote free society out here in the West is that you can have all information about who did what. Okay, you will not know what is true and what is not, and that's the best way to keep people under the ropes, under the covers. You know what? You want to know the truth? Sure, no problem. Everything's declassified. Sure, no problem. This guy did this. This guy did that. No problem. You'll find it out in the newspapers the next day, probably on page 80. But it's there. It's not that they're hiding it from you. They're putting it there, but they're just not putting it in your face.
It's called hidden in plain sight.
Yeah, there you go. And like, well, you didn't do anything 10 years ago. Why are you so pissed off about it now?
It is, from your perspective, is there an ideal political system, or what would, say, the Buddhist or Taoist views on politics be?
Excuse me. Well, yeah, it's going to be fun. Everyone has. Simple.
Everyone has what?
Everyone has. What does one person want? Everyone has. I want a house to live in. I want a house with 25 rooms. It's not really necessary. You don't need rooms of 20. Okay, who's to say what you need and what you don't need? Well, obviously you only have a family of 3. There is going to need to have some type of a ruling body, because you're always going to have someone who falls out into greed. Which is just going to happen because that's causes and conditions. People attach here and there. But what basically you'll need to have is someone who says, okay, everyone's going to have enough. And people go, oh, that's socialist. That's terrible. Really? Well, China in 60 years or plus, 60 years and a little bit extra change there, here and there, people are having more than they don't have. And it all started from everyone having the same. And then everyone started to work a little bit better and build things up, and then, oh my God, they opened the doors of free trade here and there, and everyone started getting a little bit more. But some other people are going to argue with me, well, then there's poor too. There's more poor than rich. I mean, no way. There's a lot more rich than poor now. But it's just that the poor are very poor. But that's just what happens in a society that went from full out everyone has to now everyone can fend for themselves, but everyone still has something. Okay, I'm not saying it's the best way. I'm saying, as an example, you have everyone who can have enough, and then everything else that's considered luxury now should be a little extra. Oh, well, I want a Mercedes. Okay, that's extra. Why? Because you don't need a damn Mercedes to go around the corner. You don't need a damn Mercedes to drive 40 miles down the road. You just need a car that can work, that's efficient, that doesn't rely on, fossil fuels. Okay? And these things are inexpensive. So my ideal, and I'll call it an ideal, of what I would consider something, if you want to put a label, Buddhist or Taoist on it, what's necessary is free. Simple. And who's to deem what is necessary and what isn't necessary? Well, goes back to having a common view. Everyone understands. In the winter, it's freezing. Okay, we need heat. In the summer, it's extremely hot. We would like air conditioners. Okay, we'll have that too. Why? Because people are accustomed to it. You go with what's accustomed. But, when you're looking at a 20-bedroom house, you want a mansion, that's too much. It doesn't work that way in the world of reality, nature, unless that 20-room house is being used for people around you who, would like to live in an apartment in there. Oh, great. Or in a room. Okay, great. Good. It's useful. It's nice. People are traveling. You can have a hotel or something like that. You have a room people can stay in. And since they're traveling and all that, there's different, levels of how things work. But let's look at it this way. An ideal political system is that which is not based on people and is not based on government, is based on what is enough. So the whole premise would be investing in loss. I love that phrase from Master Cheng Man-ching, Taiji Chuan, Master Cheng Man-ching. Invest in loss. That would be the whole premise of, let's say, if there was a country, and let's say I was in that country, and they said, "Hey, we would like you to be president." I'd be like, "How about this? We're all presidents, and we all have a say, but we have to focus on one specific rule: invest in loss. How much do we don't need? Then we'll know exactly what we need to exist. Food is free. Necessity is free.
People, I mean, for the most part, most people's nature is that they always want more. There's always greed, right? Ideally that would be fine, but I don't think you could ever get most people to see it that way.
No, of course not. Of course not. That's why it's just a daydream, If one followed principles of enough, that means everyone has enough. That means if we're walking in the street and someone has needs some food, do we want to give them enough to just get full that day, or do we want to give them enough where they can be full every day? What kind of method can we give a person to let them be full every day? Now, we can go the cultivation route and teach them how to meditate, teach them how to understand the mind, teach them how to let go of the karma of feeling hungry. Maybe their body can sustain without food. Perhaps. I'm serious. I'm not laughing about that. Perhaps that can happen. Or perhaps give them a networking. How do I get a job in this direction? Oh, you can get a job here. I can give you an opportunity to work there. Now they have a job. We can bring it all to the barter system. But then the whole thing comes down to what you said before, and I would say education. How do we educate our young first? Do we let them watch all this? I want this iPhone. I want this computer. I want this new fad. Right? Do we really get them involved in that because they like it and they're kids and they don't know better? No, because they don't know better. The kids are my age. My child is 1 year old. Kids his age, they're playing around with a whole bunch of toys at home. My kid has a few stuffed animals, dragons. People give him dragons because he's born in the year of the dragon. He's got a few bubble guns that make bubbles. There's like 2 of those. One he broke. And what does he have? He plays with the stuff I play with. G.I. Joes and stuff. I'm kidding. He plays with the things I have. He is interested in the stuff that we're interested in. Of course, he likes to play around with the cell phone because that's what we have in the house. But he actually bangs it around and takes pictures by himself. So amazing. He does that. Not how the hell he does it, but he does. he gets interested in the things that we utilize daily, and that's what I want him to get interested in. And the reason I want him to get interested in that, because if he falls victim to, you know, see something, want something kind of attitude, or this person has this book bag and then I should have that good style book bag too, or people will see me as insufficient, then he's going to grow up to be greedy. He's going to grow up to be egotistical. And if he becomes a politician, then I feel bad for the people around him.
There's a saying you hear quoted quite frequently, usually in reference to U.S. politics, or I guess most recently that's where you hear it, which goes that the people ultimately get the government they deserve, and that's sort of used in a kind of derogatory way towards the United States. So I was just wondering what you thought about that.
I like that actual quote. I've seen this and heard this before somehow, somewhere. I don't remember, but I know it's familiar to me. We should see where we are born as an outcome of our karma, and the conditions we live in as an outcome of our karma. If we're born into a country that has specific types of government, then that's where we are born into. That's what we're supposed to be born into, based on the causes and conditions of our past. How do we deal with it? That determines how clever we are, how wise we are. One can just pick up and leave, go to another country of their specific desire, and that's sure. But eventually, the disease spreads. So when people don't do anything, they get exactly what they're getting. People do something, they still get what they're going to get. I said this once before. You get what you always got if you do what you've always done. So if people are chasing a same dream, the outcome is going to be what they have as a whole societal outcome. If they're all chasing whatever they want, they're always going to get specific outcomes according to that level. And people will call it the way of life. Oh, that's just life. You know, people will be this way. That's human nature. It's not human nature. It's conditioning. It's education. People are educated to be that way. They just don't remember when they were educated that way. So they consider it to be something natural, something beyond their control. And that's falsity. Once people can understand that everything they do is their responsibility, everything they get is because of what they've done and what they've given, then they'll truly be able to change what's going on in this world. If they're keeping on this some vibe that changing the world means being some great type of avatar or something like that and educating the whole entire world, you know, so be it. But it's not really going to be that way. It's more or less, you got people who believe in what you think, then you all form a group, and those people go out and teach other people and create public awareness, and all of a sudden, there's a majority, a mass, that wants to change.
I guess my big concern is that it just seems like the array of tools that are lined up to keep people in a, I guess you could say, a low vibratory state is just almost overwhelming in our technological age. You know, you've got the mass media brainwashing, you've got these whatever they put in the drugs and the injections and stuff. You've got the sex culture, you've got music, you got like all these low things that are tend to pull people down right away from wisdom and into like the lower urges like sex and desire.
Right.
I know they've probably always been there to some extent, but I would say that in our modern technological society, they're much more powerful than ever.
Yeah, but that's the point of this show. I mean, of the name of our show means expedient means. And we did a show called Adversity is the Expedient Means. Exactly what we are given is exactly what we utilize to jump out of this specific type of dream state we're in, that the whole world is fine and dandy, or the whole world is going to explode one day. You know? Yeah. We can utilize these things. Someone brings us a military action in the streets, martial law in the streets. Okay, how do we utilize that martial law to change? Do you think we have to change the way things are in society first? No. You don't change the environment. You change yourself. Then the environment changes.
I guess now, in a way, because things are so overwhelming, it's almost easier to recognize, whereas if you lived in a society where the control mechanisms are more subtle, you may not snap out of it, right? So I guess I understand.
Yeah, it takes time. You need people to do public awareness. You need people who wake up, take the right kind of pill, you know, quote unquote, and they wake up and they can go out there and start saying, hey, no, this situation is bad. Our food is being poisoned. Our water is being poisoned. Our land is being poisoned. Our air is being poisoned. Wake up, people. But you cannot use it in that sense because people see it as the movements of what they consider now conspiracy theorists that happened throughout the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And, now in the thousands, 2000s plus. It becomes kind of a usual rhetoric, it's the same old crap here and there, what the hell, who cares? And they dismiss it. So you gotta, whoever's out there doing things to help people understand, you gotta be very creative. Go with the times, man. What is it that people are so into now? And utilize those methods to change. A big way of changing society, big way of changing our world is through music. Music can change the minds of every single person out there. It can. That's how music is controlling us now.
It's almost like a mantra.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I have mantras that are sung, okay? Buddhist mantras that are sung, and they have music to it. Not rock music, nothing like that. But they're done in a way that it seems to give you a sense of peace and relaxation. I play it once in a while for my son when he's ready to go to sleep. Why? Because it changes. It changes some things here and there for his mentality. Lets him go to sleep. But generally, music can change people's mind. That's how do I say? That's how dynasties were changed in old ancient times. They changed culture. They changed how people react with each other. They changed the way society dealt with each other through rites and actions and sounds and music.
And that sort of explains why most of the mainstream music, the stuff that the big corporations are pushing, tends to be negative, right? Again, going to sex and
sex is so dense.
Crap.
Definitely. That way keeps people on such a low level vibration where it just makes them think that's the way the world is. And that's what they should aspire to. Right. So we have to change what we're interested in. If we don't like how the world is, well, think the world is not me and then the world. The world is everything in your mind. The world is everything around you. That will influence everything around you.
Yeah, and I think, again, like as far as music and movies and stuff, I think the best solution is to adopt the same solution as, avoiding shopping at Walmart, right? You go independent. There's a lot of really great music out there, but it doesn't get pushed by the mainstream. So
right,
you gotta find these people. And when you do find them, instead of just downloading them for free, you gotta actually support them.
Exactly. We can do so much. We can create websites, individual free websites with our own type of understanding of what we would like the world to become, what we like society to become, how people can do things that are better for others. Start promoting the more goodness in the world. Take pictures, be journalists, be what people would consider amateur journalists. Take pictures of things good happening in the world. Let people feel like there is happiness somewhere. Let them understand that even on the most basic levels, the most mundane, quote-unquote, levels of living, we can actually function peacefully. Even when there's war happening in the world, eventually people will stop and go, no, I don't like this. I don't want this. Less people would join the military out of silent protest stating, we don't want to go to war with people we don't even know. We don't want to go to war. What the hell are we going to war for? Oil? More control? We don't want that. Maybe. Really, it's really crazy what happens. So yeah, start small, but adjust our own views. Very important. If we sit there at home cursing and screaming out at this government and this country and that country, it's not going to get anything done. Educate yourself. How is it that way? What is their cultural heritage? Why are they like this? Then go further in investigation. This way, you educate yourself. Then you can educate other people. And also, very important, investigate your mind. You must meditate. You must take time to find out what your attachments are with what you think must be. If you think it must be a certain way, then you're just going to become empirical. You know?
I,
Excuse me.
I've read I can't remember which book it was, but from a Taoist perspective, you just sort of adopt a laissez-faire attitude that, yes, the political and social systems will hit extremes, but then once they hit those extremes, within it will be the seeds of their opposite, and the pendulum will eventually swing back.
Eventually.
And again, with like, you look at the mainstream media, the fakery and the nonsense has just reached such an extreme that people don't even want to watch it anymore. So
Exactly.
it's we didn't have to do anything. They just almost became self-defeating, right?
Exactly. When someone has to push for their way over time, they lose their way. My father used to tell me, when you want control, you let go of control. So for us out there, it doesn't mean stop putting out information. It means do it in a way where you have control. Let go of what you think you need and start putting out what is good to have. Okay? And there it goes, investigating the mind. What are your attachments to what you think need to be like? And you change those attachments. You adjust your views, you adjust your manners and speech and thought. And then you become examples. Maybe you just don't watch TV anymore. Maybe people will stop watching TV. Then how is the media going to affect us? Means people stop listening to syndicated radio, which is corporate radio, and you start listening to public funded radio more. Maybe you get tired of listening to the rhetoric that happens there too, where it goes on to say this country and this government is doing such and such things, which is important to understand if you want to go out there and do something. But if you're not going to go out there and do something, then don't complain.
Yeah, I'll throw you one of my classic rabbit curveballs.
Uh-oh.
Um, what are your thoughts on there being some type of external influence, kind of pushing our political system in the wrong direction, like say a demonic or like a alien or reptilian type influence? Do you have any views on that?
Well, I'll say a quote from Master Xuanhua. I believe he said this back in the 70s or so. Said people are so into their technology now, they don't even realize you got beings, monsters from other planets taking over their world. And I sit there and go, oh my God. you know? Okay. Well, besides him saying that, I mean, it's kind of interesting to see that how would a person just turn around and be totally psychotic to put harm in people's way just so they can have the suffering to wake up? Doesn't make sense. There's something else going on here. We have something called the demons of the heavens of transforming other people's bliss. And it's kind of very, very reminiscent of how our world is now, how things are being on now, where people have the fortune to be born in a part of a country or a certain place with a certain type of lifestyle that gives them enough, but that is being utilized against them and being brought to a point where suffering is imposed on people, and their wealth or their fortune or their good fortune, it doesn't mean it has to be money generally, but just their good fortune is being taken right under from them. In place of happiness, you exchange it. Maybe exchanging liberty for control, exchanging freedom for control. So you don't have terrorist actions out there. Sorry, that doesn't weigh very well. When you have to give up your liberty, it's not good. You give up freedom, it's not good. And who's to say freedom was eventually or truly ours? We have to look at our karma. Some people can't, so they just have to try to understand that, okay, I'm in this world. These are the conditions of the world. How do I utilize it? Okay, if you can't make a big noise, make a small noise. What is a small noise? Raise your family well. Be a good person. Don't fund big corporations that fund the bigger corporations, that fund the even bigger corporations to do things that hurt other people around the world you have no clue about. Because once you do that, you are part of that kind of karma. There's this other type of insight that went around stating the way the world is, or kind of like the reason there's a lot of fighting and wars is because people, for eons and eons, ate meat. All the killing and all this, the torture that they gave to animals. Well, those animals eventually became humans, and they remembered on that energetic karmic level, they live the life they live as warmongers or as crazy governments who go around killing people, okay, as a way to get back at those people for eating them in past lives.
So could you say, like, because your population is growing so exponentially, um, could it be that there's sort of, I don't want to say a lower quality, but less evolved souls are incarnating onto the earth?
It's not that it's less evolved souls; it's that the heavy karma of
Right. Okay.
of living beings kind of hinder them from seeing or block them from understanding. Karma, the karma and the capacity to understand. If someone has a karma to understand, they will understand. If they don't, they won't. So it's not that there's less evolved souls. It's just that the karma of living beings is very heavy, very turbid. It's kind of like water, muddy water. Some are less murky than others. Some water is less murkier than others. So, some dirt there's not so much dirt at the bottom of the cup. And when you spin the cup around with water, you turn the water, the dirt rises. Sometimes you can see the bottom of the cup still. Sometimes you can't. It's just like into that. Some people's karma is heavy. They can't tell the difference between left or right.
Going back to the question, though, do you think that, again, with the population, so high compared to what it's historically been, do you think that would be bringing in more souls with heavy karma?
It's basically that people will have heavy karma due to what they've done in their lives. So if those beings, maybe they did do terrible things before, but they still have the blessings to have a human body, they have the conditions to have a human body, they'll be born in a human body, but with dulled capacity. So we have a high rate of the population on our planet. Okay? That's a lot more people with blessings a lot more beings with blessings for a human body. They have the conditions to have a human body. How that's going to pan out basically is based on the heaviness of their karma.
All right. I'm just, yeah, I guess it's, again, speculative anyhow, right?
Look, there's not going to be an ideal political plan for any country on this planet until people shut out greed. When they can understand their attachments to things, then they'll understand how society is going to be. Until that time, it's not going to be any other way than it is now.
Have you ever, I think I've sent you the link before for the movie They Live?
Yeah.
Where they put the glasses on. I always love that movie because it's almost like you could take it on the practical level, like, yes, there are these demonic beings out there, or you could take it on sort of a metaphorical level, right? And I just wonder what would happen if all of a sudden, everybody could see that level of reality, right? I think I mentioned it to you before, and you thought it would create a chaotic situation because people's minds wouldn't be ready to accept that version of reality.
Yeah, it's kind of, for example, I'll mention my wife. She says, I want to see dragons. And I say, practice, cultivate. It's like into people who say, I want to see ghosts. And then by accident, meaning they weren't planning to, they see a ghost and they flip out. What the hell are you asking for it for? They're not ready for it. But your analogy to the movie They Live is really, really good because it's kind of like that. People don't know what's out there. People just think there's people. People are still very self-centered. Our societies and education is very self-centered. There's only people, and maybe there's life on another planet, and maybe they've come and influenced us. How self-centered is that? Very. And what proof is there that there are or there were other beings or that there are other beings on our planet now influencing us? What other proof is there? Open your eyes, people, by meditation. I don't care what meditation it is, do it. You'll find out eventually. You may not see different forms, but you'll really get that deep, strong, intuitive realization. of what is going on out there. But what do you do with it after you know? Well, it goes back to what you were saying before. Let's do some public awareness campaigns. You do it without campaigning like other politicians.
So what if someone made an argument, okay, that they knew, like, say a group of people were evil and they should kill them or something? What would you say to that?
It doesn't help. Killing is not going to help stop the actual cause of what brought the world to where it is. It's not at all. Helping them change will, but you can't force people to change. So you have to get a majority of people to state that they do not want this lifestyle anymore. And what's going to happen is those who are in power, or whatever evil beings are out there, are going to lose their power because there's not enough people who believe in them or who believe in those specific methods. It goes right back to changing our views about what we assume should be.
It's funny, some of the more powerful videos I've seen has just been people going up and exposing these people right to their face, kind of going up to them and saying, why did you commit war crimes, and kind of chasing them down the street. And like, these people, once they're exposed, like they just look like scared sheep. It's like, oh my God, don't shine the light on me.
It's a demon spotting mirror, basically. When you have that kind of person that runs around going, you did this, you did that, the other person is asking for it. It's just really simple. You can't walk around shooting people expecting other people not to recognize you. You do some terrible things like that, people will find out, and then they will try to expose it. Especially if they have proof, especially if they know the connections that one has. Then it becomes quite obvious.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of General Petraeus just recently got a teaching position at, I don't know if it was NYU, it was one of the New York universities, and the students just basically flipped out, and they've been following him back and forth to class, calling him a war criminal. But yeah, like, this guy's a general, right? Supposed to be, a big tough guy, but you look in his eyes and he just looks terrified and horrified, right? It's hilarious.
Hey, eventually more and more stuff like that's going to happen, and that's good.
Oh, it's really good, yeah.
Oh, it's very.
I think We Are Change does the same thing. They'll go into these news conferences where people are asking the politicians, the typical softball questions, right? And then they throw these, bombshells up, and the politicians just flip out. You can tell, you can just see their face knot up. They just hate it, eh?
Mm-hmm. And that's good. We need stuff like that, and make sure that one is educated to do that. Control emotions. Really have it straight up. This is what the person's involved in. Explain it to them in front of everyone else. They may be seen as a conspiracy theorist, but realize conspiracy that's been theorized about for the last 20, 30 years is coming true.
Exactly.
So they're not theorists, really.
No, and I think what you just said is key as well. When if you're gonna do something like that, to control your emotions. You don't want to look like a blubbering idiot, right? Or someone who's all enraged, because that doesn't help you. But if you go in there, calm and collected and look like a rational person, then that's what's going to work.
Exactly. And you know what? What happens, this is so funny, politics affect us on a social level. People see how things are run in politics, then they start acting like that on a social level. That means your friends, people's families, they start acting just like politicians. And they think it's the right way because politicians do it. The whole country is run that way, or the world is run a specific way and whatnot. And they act like that. They create these notions of stupidity and ignorance based on a concept or based on a specific type of feeling they get when they really kind of almost believe what's happening in politics. For example, you don't do anything wrong, and a person says you did something wrong, and then you're saying, no, I didn't, and you explain your ways, but then they try to utilize any which way possible to make you to be wrong. And in their eyes, you are wrong, because they must believe in what they say. They must feel empowered by the views and the stance they take, because other people believe them too, or they have the potential for other people to believe in them too.
Well, that's part of the problem with the United States. I mean, is the younger generation looks at the business leaders and the political leaders, and they basically say, oh well, if our leaders are all a bunch of cheating, lying crooks, and that's what it takes to get ahead, then why shouldn't I do it? Why should I bother? Why shouldn't I cheat on my taxes, or what have you, right?
Right, exactly. And I'm not saying to go and pay your taxes fully. I mean, go in and investigate the laws. I know several years back I read that there was no law that stated we are totally in a position we must pay our taxes, but I think there's a bill now that states we have to. But if people just pushed out the Federal Reserve, we can change a lot of that. Push out IRS, we can change a lot of that.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to do that, I mean, people should understand that if you choose not to pay your taxes, even although it's probably there is no law, you better be prepared to fight it, because they're going to come after you, right? So
be educated, have resources, have references. I'm telling you, these people know the ins and outs of how their game works, and you want to play their game, you will lose unless you can play their game and play it better.
Keywords, their game, right? It's not yours. They make the rules, and they change the rules as they see fit.
Exactly. On this planet, I mean, there's a Buddhist sutra called the Vimalakirti Nirdesa Sutra, and in that sutra, Shakyamuni Buddha was asked, "Where's your Pure Land?" Every Buddha has a Pure Land. Where's the Shakyamuni Buddha Pure Land? And the Buddha turned around and says, "Right here, this planet. It's my Pure Land." And he was like, "Well, you crazy? There's suffering here. You have suffering. You have death. You have sickness and old age. Everything is just corrosive here. How the hell is this your Pure Land?" And he said, "I'll give you a beak." And he lifted up his foot. And the whole scene changed. I mean, lift up his foot was just a mannerism in what he did. But he showed everyone what actually the world looked like. And then he stopped. And then they go, "What the hell? That was beautiful. What? I can't believe this. What's going on here?" And he goes, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "Why are you leaving the world the way it is?" Because I can take the veil off, but you can't. Basically, he's trying to say, because if I left the world to look and be the way it truly is, no one would practice, no one would cultivate, not one person would go and investigate their mind. No one would become a Buddha. Why? Here is just enough suffering to keep you awake, and it has just enough fortune to get you just enough. But then someone's going to say, "So what do you mean? These politicians who are causing wars and famine and all this stuff, and these companies who are hurting all our food and everything, and our water or whatever, and our air, they're Buddhas?" Well, if you see them as demons, then you're going to give them a lot more power. And if you see them as Buddhas, then you're probably going to believe that what they're doing is right, and you can empower that way too. So how about not view them as either at all, and just do not entertain how they are living. Do not entertain what they're giving you. There's choices in the world, and those choices, every single choice has its consequences. Are you ready to deal with them? Someone used to come and ask me when I would treat patients when I was younger, they would ask me, "Oh, I have this problem, I have that problem. What can I do?" And I would ask them, "Do you want to get better?" "Well, of course I want to get better. That's why I came to you." Say, "All right, well, you got to stop this A, B, and C, and D. Can you do that?" Oh, I think D is a little too much and B is a little overboard. Sorry, go away." Yeah, I can't do anything for you. Are you ready to take what is necessary to take in order to go forward, in order to succeed? So here I'm bringing up the Buddha saying this is his Pure Land, because no matter how much destruction we have on this planet, there are still people who live in different parts of the world who are not bothered by it. How the hell is that possible? Well, it doesn't mean that rich. It doesn't mean that at all.
The funny thing is, in most places you go, the rich people, usually they don't seem very happy, but you go to these countries with people that have almost nothing, and the kids are smiling, and they've got a tight family, and they've got traditional values, and everybody seems a lot happier.
Right. So what's really more of the driving force of life now? It's not money. We all know that. We all know this is straight up talk of money isn't everything and all that's nonsense. We all know that. And it's very important. I'm not calling it nonsense. I'm just saying we know this already for years and years, tens and tens and tens and tens of years, 20s plus. We know what the deal is with materialism and finances. We know that already. But value, that's in your mind. So we're talking about this Vimalakirti Sutra, and we say the Buddha showed the Pure Land is here on this planet. But then he said, no, I don't let people see all that. You got to work for it. Okay? That all the stuff that we encounter is based on our mind. The whole world is the way it is based on our mind. It's so much based on our mind that we don't even see the actual world out there. We just keep creating concepts about things, notions and views about the world. Someone's going to say, well, the guy on the corner who's dying of hunger, who's starving out there, that's reality, not this fluffy world that you're talking about. No, I'm sorry. That is reality. That he made that way due to his mind. Of course, other people influenced him, but those people will not be able to influence him if his mind was not able to be influenced. You see, there's causes and conditions. Then there's beings who just want to screw around with your head. And if you fall, well, you had the conditions to fall. And then what those other people are doing to you become a reality in your lifestyle and in your life. So all this is craziness that are happening in our world. Okay, yeah. It's there because that's the causes and conditions of what those people are able to do, and we are in the conditions in which we are influenced by it. But we also have methods to not be influenced by it.
Yeah, I mean, ideally it'd be, it's easy to say, like, these things will work themselves out or the pendulum will swing back, or, if we just ignore them, they'll go away. But, when the hammer's being dropped down on you constantly, sometimes it is hard to just ignore it or to put down your views about it.
I wonder if anyone ever asked that question towards the people who wanted to make the world the way it is now. What did they think? Oh, it's going to be hard to make people give in. It's going to be hard to make people so ignorant to what we're really doing. I mean, these people are educated. How do we do this? Someone comes around and says, well, let's try. Let's do it in a way where they won't recognize it. Let's just try to find a way they won't recognize it. Let's put this person in office. Let's put that person in office. Why don't we throw this person in the education system? Why don't we change the way our music is being played? Why don't we change the focus of our music a little? Let's throw out a song that just talks about having sex and drinking alcohol and doing drugs. Let's see if people take to that and put really cool rhythm. What's the really cool rhythms nowadays? Oh, let's utilize that. And let's just throw in a few little words here and there and see if people buy into the music. Holy crap, it worked. We thought it was never going to work. We thought people weren't going to get attached to it. Let's throw in some more. So did anyone ever stop and think? Maybe when these people were making up plans on how they're going to run around and control things in the world, maybe they thought it was going to be too hard to do. And then they just decided they're going to try a little bit here and there. And oh my God, it worked. Oh, this time it failed. Or that time it failed. Oh, this one worked too. Oh, let's do the one that worked. You have to make mistakes in order to find the better way. We can do that. We can do that now. Okay? Oh, well, let's just make more music and let's sign up with private companies, not high corporate companies. Just sign up. Let's sign ourselves. I want to sign myself in my own band. And I want to do PR work for myself. I'm going to do it. Oh, that's hard. You're not going to get founded. I am founded myself. People who like me found me too. And I'm going to go out to bars. I'm going to go out to nightclubs. I'm going to go out in the corner. I'm going to and boom, people like my music. They buy my $5 CD or whatever you do if you do like music online or something like that. They buy this or they buy $3 this and $2 that or whatever. They buy your music. Now you're starting to influence people. Maybe a big corporation wants to sign you and say, sorry, I like what I'm doing. Though I can make millions more with you, I'm really doing it so I don't get involved with you. And it's all in my hands. I can say what I want, play what I want, do what I want. And people like it. I can make any concert whenever I want, and people will come. Maybe they don't come, but I just had a concert for the trees, and you play in a friggin' forest. Okay? That's how you do with music. That's how you do with everything else. Learn how to make your clothes. Maybe buy hemp-made clothes. Maybe buy natural, or not fashion industry clothing. Okay, maybe you might buy the no great famous name brand, Maybe you buy that person's clothes. Maybe you make your own name brand, and who cares if, Fifth Avenue likes your clothes? Who cares if fashion industry likes it? You make your own. I like my style clothes. I'm going to push my style clothes. And you make your own online store and you sell your own clothes. Oh, I need a manufacturer for it. So you get a manufacturer for it. Maybe you hire people who know how to sew. Maybe you try to get funded by, self-employed people who have their own companies, did their own thing, and you try to get them to throw you a few thousand, and they become a shareholder in your own little private stock market of, I just sell this amount of clothing, how much do I give back to these people? And you work a deal, 1%, 3%. You're not making billions of dollars. It's not that kind of industry, buddy. It's just simply all grassroots. The reason why we have grassroots is because we have corporations. We have trees that are sucking up the water. So now we're doing it at the grassroots level.
I do see, a lot of changes taking place. There's trends to grow your own vegetables. There's trends to cook your own food. All these things are trendy right now. So, I mean, that's a real positive sign. And, politics, again, it's become so extreme that it's sown its own seeds of destruction, because now you've got these independents that are running. And, again, the on balance created awareness. So anyhow, maybe you give some closing thoughts, and we'll call it a wrap.
Well, closing thoughts, political views. Basically, you have political views. If you're not educated about them, and if you're not researching and actually taking action, then don't bother complaining. If you're going to do something about the world, go out and do something about the world. First, investigate your mind. Understand your own hang-ups. Understand your own problems. Start fixing your mind too. Understand that there's causes and conditions for everything. You may not find every single cause and may not understand every single condition, but at least you can have the ability to contemplate them. So you can better understand wisely why things are being done and how you can influence them to be done in a different way so they can have different outcomes. Okay? Basically, that's it. I talked about 12 causes and conditions, only laid them out for people to contemplate them. Okay, we spoke that this land is a Buddhist pure land, but it could be a heaven. It could be anything you want it to be. Just because the Buddha said it's his pure land doesn't mean it actually is his and everyone else is just hanging out on it. All it means is that we're all Buddhas, but may not be awakened. All it means is that we are all on this planet, so we have to find the right view and how we're going to utilize it to benefit each other.
And if anybody wants a pair of the Hoffman lenses from They Live, just send me a check for $19.95, and it'll show you the true reality of who really runs the planet.
And when people actually do wake up, right? Whenever people actually do start to see what actually is going on, understand that you're not actually seeing the really true reality. You're still seeing the relative reality of things. It's still clouds. It's still obstructions. When you start seeing what's going on, truly seeing it, these are still obstructions. We want to find a way to stop these obstructions, nourish seeds of other types of outcomes. So these obstructions transform or they disappear altogether.
Yeah, and those lenses cost $39.95 actually.
Yeah.
I'm just
Shipping
kidding.
And handling not included.
No, all right. Well, anyway, thanks again, Lynn. That was a good talk. I rather enjoyed it.
Cool, fun.
And for listeners, I want to thank you for joining us again. For listening. Thank you again for listening to Expedient Means with Lynn Away on Tomahawk Radio. Please be sure to join us next week as we provide a commentary on the Tao Te Ching chapters 31 through 40. And to quote the final chapter of the Tao Te Ching, the sage does not accumulate. The more he assists others, the more he possesses. The more he gives to others, the more he gains. Thanks, Lynn.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, have fun.
Ciao.
Ciao.